All right, hey everybody, we're gonna talk about some pressing patterns today, and I'm gonna show you if you did 96 across or 64 across, how would I press that up or press and collect? Let's talk about it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Holy Roller, where it's all about playing craps, earning free cruises, and a whole lot more. Thanks for watching. Now let's get rolling.
Okay, let's say we do have 64 across. Now I do have this rule, okay, that I would never, I'm telling you this, it's a new philosophy of mine. If you're on a $10 table, you should never bet minimums, by the way, because this would be where I would be if I regressed and was out of the hand, okay? So I know some of you, $64, you should have $640 if you're gonna do 64 across so that you have enough for 10 shooters, because that's another rule or another law that I like to follow when it comes to having enough for 10 shooters. But let's say you're on a $10 table and instead of 64 across, I would throw in an extra $2, by the way, and then I would make it 66, okay, 66 inside. Now, so I'm not really gonna show you the 64 right now. I'm gonna show you that in a minute, because if you were gonna start at 64, you would probably wanna start at 66 like this instead of having the 4 and 10, just because this pays more. It actually pays 21 each one of these. And then after the first hit, you can get a 4 and 10 at minimum, but because of these, you're not at minimum. It still counts because the second hit happens and it pays either 21 or it pays 18 if it's one of these. But if it paid 21, then you can go down to 44 inside and have that paid for. But if you wanted to take it down and kind of be out of the hand, you can go to 64 at that point. And let me show you how much you have here. That's your winnings, by the way. 10, 20, 30, 44, okay? And here we go. Look at this right here. Boom, okay? So you're actually 44, so you're playing for $20. But that $20, you didn't start off from the beginning. You got there, okay? So I hope that makes sense to get to the $10 level. Now, I will show you where to press from here, and then I'll also show you, if you have a $15 table, how you're gonna do 96 across if you're gonna do that, and you would want some money for that, right? You'd want some 96, you'd want at least $1,000 to play with, okay? So here we go, let's do the $15 level, and then because, well, actually, no, let's do this. I'm gonna go back, okay? I'm gonna go back to the 64 in case there are some of you that wanna break the rules and start at 64. Now remember, the scenario I just did, we got out with all of this money, so we're only in it for $20, okay? So with all that being said, here's the 64 level, okay, for those that are on the $10 table. So anything hits. If a 4 or a 10 hit, I would treat them together. They would pay $18. When I say treat them together is I would press them together. Now, if you watch my other videos, you know the pressing pattern, okay? But what I would do is I would take 15 each. I would bring $8 back to my rack if it was a 4 or 10, okay? Now notice I'm keeping the 4 and 10 by themselves, but it doesn't mean necessarily that I would do it with a 5 and 9 and a 6 and 8, meaning that if any one of these hit, they would pay $14. And let's say it was a 9, for example. I'm probably pressing the 6 and 8, 1 unit each, and taking the $2 back to my rack, okay? Even if a 9 hit, by the way. If a 5 and 9 hit again and paid another 14, then I'm going to 15 each on the 5 and 9. So notice now we're at 96 across. So basically, if the 4 and 10 hit, I would press them 1 unit each. If any of the inside hit, I would press these 1 unit each, then I'd press these 1 unit each. I hope that makes sense. But where are we at now? We're at 96 across, okay? 96 across. Now, some of you actually play this level. So if you're on a $15 table, you have to start with $96. So if you're starting with $96, how do you press these? Now, much like I showed you in the single press when I was talking about the 410, the 5.9, the 6.8, I did some videos like that. Now we're at 96 across. Now, say you had to start at 96 across. Again, it kind of breaks the rules for you not to be one level up, right? So what would you do? you would go like this and get the one level up, okay? So that would be, it wouldn't even cost you 96 to be 88 inside, okay? But let's say we get back to the 96 and we're regressed, we got our money out, we're playing for free. Here we go, 96 across, right? So here's the 96 across. If a 4 and 10 hit, I would treat them together. I would treat the 5 and 9 together at this level, and I would treat the 6 and 8 together at this level. What I mean by that is if the 4 and 10 hit, it's going to pay 27 no matter what. And I would make them both look like a quarter. Okay, so that goes over here. This goes over there. Here's the VIG for both of them. And now we take $5 back to our rack and we have the 4 and 10 at a quarter each. Okay. Now, the cool thing about that is you started with 15 and 15, so 30. Now you have 50, right? And you brought 5 back to your rack, okay? You could throw it on the hard way, on one of the hard ways, or you could just bring it back to your rack, okay? The other thing is, now let's say these hit. It's $1 for 50. Now, at this level, I would collect, so then on my $30 bet, I won 55. Remember the 5? Okay, I won 54 because I had to throw in $1 on whichever one hit, okay? So $54, which is, you know, almost the inside here, right? So getting money back as we go. Okay, let's say a 5 or 9 hit, that pays 21. I would make them both look like 25, bring $1 back to my rack, by the way. And notice we didn't have to throw in any money for any of those, okay? And now we're at the 5 and 9 at 25 and the 4 and 10 are at 25. Now let's say a 5 and 9 hit, they're gonna pay 35, okay? And whichever one hit, I would bring it to 35 and I'd bring a quarter back to my rack, okay? So that's when I would separate them at this level, okay? Now, let's say the 6 and 8 hit. If a 6 and 8 hit, it would pay 21. We would throw in $1, by the way, or sorry, $3, and that all adds up to $30 each on the 4 and 10, okay? So, or sorry, the 6 and 8. So that makes $60 when you throw in that $3, okay? So being that now is, what is this? 160, right? 160 across, right? Now, remember, you started at 90, what was it, 96 or 64, but you started at 96 and you collected along the way, you collected a little bit back along the way. If the 4 and 10 hit right now, you remember you took 50 back, because the second hit, once you get to this level, you want to take at least 50 back. If you 4 and 10 hit, you could say, I want to take same bet so I can take another 50 back and have my 96 back. Or chances are one of these inside would hit, and if it was a 5 or 9, remember when I talked about taking the quarterback? Now you're just 1 quarter away or 1 hit away from being out of the hand, okay? So let's say that happened and that's like that. But now we're talking about the 6 and 8 from at this level. The 6 and 8 at this level, you could treat it the same. If you want to be a little aggressive, treat it the same. If you want to be more conservative, treat it as individual bets, meaning they pay $35. If you say make them both look like 42 each, they'll take this, they'll give you a dollar change, and then they would bump these by 12 each, okay? So then they would look like 42 each. You would be bringing $11 back to your rack. Now these pay 1 for 50, okay? Now this pays 1 for 50, okay, the 9. This still pays 35, okay? So being that this still pays 35, let's say a 5 hit, okay? So a 5 hits, and if a 5 hits, it's gonna pay 35 like we talked about. And all you have to do is go like that and take it to the same as this, and then bring a quarter back to your rack. At this level, remember, you're gonna get paid 1 for 50 here. I would still treat the 5 and 9 together, meaning any 5 or 9 hit, I throw in $1, I get 50, and then I'm asking them to make them both look like 50, and I'm bringing 20 or a difference of 19 back to my rack, okay? Now, what about the 6 and 8 at this level? At this level, I actually leave the 6 and 8 separate. I keep them separate at this level, meaning if they pay 1 for 50, I'm gonna tell them make my, say the 8 hit, I'm going to say make my 8 look like 60. So they're going to take $1 off of this, hopefully, and then they will make it look like 60, and then you will bring this back to your rack, okay? And that's where they separate. That's where they separate. So at the $42 level, they separate and treat them individual. If they're hitting, the next time this hits, you would do the same thing. It would go to 60. If the 8 hit again, it would pay $70 and you would make it look like 90, okay? So it would pay 70, you would make it look like 90, which means you would take back to your rack, you'd still take back $40 back to your rack, okay? As you're pressing along the way. So now this is at 90, pays 105, and let's say it does pay 105. What you're gonna do is you're gonna wanna take it to 120. 120 completes the circle, completes the evolution of 120, meaning that it's like $12. And look, you get 75 back to your rack, and you $12 or 120 pays the same, except for, what's the difference? You add a 0, right? So this, instead of $14, because this would be equivalent of $12, instead of 14, it pays 140, right? 140, add a 0 on a 14 is 140. What's the next level that we go to? Whenever we're at 12, we always go to 18. So that means this would go to 180. If this went to 180, then they would get, what would they get? I mean, basically, I have to break this down. Sorry, let me break this down. They would probably do that if you said it fast enough. Take it to 180. Okay, so here's 75 and 80, and you're bringing, here's another, I'm gonna just change this in 25, because you're bringing 80 back to your rack. So think about it like that. When you go to 180, you bring 80 back to your rack. Okay, so what's the next level we go to whenever we're at $18? We go to $30. So we usually do it together. When it's 18 and 18, we throw in 3 to go to, go to $30. So but that means this one from 180 would go to 300. Okay, I know that's a lot, but what does 18 pay? It pays 21, add a 0, 210, right? And what's that do? That brings this to 300. And then I know it's tempting not to collect those blacks, but look, black chips, it went to 300. And what do you have here? You have another $80, $90 back to your rack. Now, you could, if you wanted to regress, go back to $90 and you'll have 300 to pull back to your rack. Okay, however you want to do it is fine. But if you want to be aggressive, get it to the 300, take the 90 back to your rack, okay? And I don't know if you noticed that, but that was a great way to, because we're at 120, then you would go back to 90 and you would have 300 in your rack. Okay, I hope that makes sense. But we're going to 300, okay? We're going to 300. And you could do this on either one, whatever happens. But since we're at 300, 30 pays 35, which is 350. Now, this is the aggressive move. What do you do when you're at $30? You go to 42, right? And then from 42, you go to 60, okay? Now, this is the aggressive move, because you could go to 420 if you wanted to, okay? So that would be this and, minus 1 of this. So you could go to 420. On my other video, I didn't show this because I think this one is kind of like, I mean, you are bringing some back, but I would say, okay, here we go. Let's bring this back to this right here. Because I would say if you're willing to be, if you're willing to get paid $350, okay, and you're willing to have 300 there, and you get one hit, okay, one hit, just go to 60 or 600, because on a Royal Caribbean ship, that's table max. So I go from 300 to 600. I only bring 50 back. Now remember, I brought enough back along the way, so I'm not too worried about losing this. But if this hits, you get paid $700. Then you could go back to 90, right? Go back to 90, and what do you have? You have $7, $8, $9, $10, $11, $1,200, and then you go back to 90. Or you could just leave it there and just collect $700 every single time. All right, I hope that helps on the pressure and the pressing. And so if we're at the $25 level, this is how I'd press at the $25 level as well. I normally would never play at a $25 table. I like the flexibility of being able to regress, and really at $25, 160, I mean, that's a lot of money to start with without a way to regress. So you'd want to go 220 inside if you were at a $25 table. So you would need at least maybe $2,500 if you're playing at a $25 table. Think about it like that. $25 table, $2,500. Okay, simple as that. Don't play it if you don't have $2,500. Okay, that's my tips. That's what I'm saying for you. Okay, we haven't talked about the 5 and 9 going all the way up like that, or the 4 and 10. So let's do it really quick. We'll do let's just put 30 on the 8 just so there's something there. Okay, so now we're at the 5 and 9. It pays 70. Okay, if it pays 70, then I'm bringing them both to 75. Okay, and then I'm only bringing 20 back to my rack. So again, I said this before, but once you're at the $10 level, and once you get to 50, right? Because okay, let me go backwards with this just really quick. Okay, so remember we went from 10 to 15 on the 5 and 9. Okay, then we went to 25. Then we still pressed to 35, right? And then we went to 50. Now, once you're at 50, don't press it by any nickels anymore. It's all the presses are at least by 25. So we got both of them like this. It pays 105. I'm gonna pay it like this so you can see, because we're gonna go to 100 on each, bring 55 back to our rack. I hope this is not too fast. Now we're at 100 each, but we're still pressing at the green level, meaning that if this was 100, remember, it would be like a 10. So the next level is 150. So if it pays 140, okay, I'm gonna pay it like this just so you can see it. Pays 140, or 10 pays 14, or add a 0, 140. Then you can press them both, or you could keep it separate, however you want. Normally at this level, I would keep them separate, meaning if a 5 hit, I'd say make it look like 150, and I would bring $90 back to my rack. Okay, then if the 9 hit, I'd say make it look like 150. From 150, remember that's $15. Where do we go from 15? We go to $25. So from 150, we want to go to 250. Okay, so 15 pays 21, or 150 pays 210. All we have to do is take 10 back and go like this, or if it hits, you go like this, you bring 110 back, and you still have a 250, which pays 350. If it pays 350. Where do you go from 30? From 25, you go to 35. So you can just bump it to 35. That pays 500 for 10. Okay, 500 for 10. So, or are you ready for this? Here we go. Let me show you this move. Okay, I'm just racking this other stuff, getting it out of the way. 500, you threw in 10, right? And you say, make it look like 500. What do you bring back? You bring back $340 because you had to throw in the 10, and you have a $500, so you bring this back. Then from there, what does it pay? You know what it pays. It pays $700, okay? If you're at a $500 max, which normal Royal Caribbean cruise ship is $500 max, then you just collect every time it hits at this level. Or you can bring it back down to 200 and start over and bring 1,000 back to your rack. But I would normally just, once I get to max, I just collect if it hits. I leave it out there because I made money along the way. I hope that helps. Are you ready to do the 4 and 10? Let's do the 4 and 10 really quick. 4 and 10, I would collect the first hit. Okay, once it gets to here, 25, I would collect and get the 50, okay? Because whether I did 10 and 10 or whether I did 15 and 15, I'm getting my 4 and 10 money back plus a little bit more for the next few rounds. Then the next time it hits, I'm throwing in $3 because I'm bringing them both to 50, meaning I'm not collecting on the second hit. Then if it hits again, this is where you can treat them together or separate, however you want, but they're gonna get paid 2 for 100, okay? But I would probably throw in $4 so that I can make them both look like 75, bring 50 back to my rack. So that's 100 that I brought back to my rack based on the 4 and 10. And then you can also say now it's 150, right? This one makes it easy. It pays 150. What do? You press them each, and then you're bringing $100 back to your rack. A quarter each, by the way. So in other words, whenever you get to a quarter, always just press them by a quarter. Don't use these to press the 4s and 10s once you get to a quarter, okay? That's just my, like, I know a lot of people want to go to 35, but just don't do it. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it, okay? Oh, sorry, we're at 100. So now that we're at 100 on both of these, what does that pay? For $10, $5, I mean, it pays 200. But I would, if you want to collect, yes, collect, press collect. But because it pays 200, I would probably put in another 10 at this level so that these are 200 each. Then you throw in, on here you'd have to throw in 10 if one of them hit, and it's gonna pay 400, okay? 400, they pay 400. And so again, I would probably just go by hundreds, okay? I know I'm not like being super aggressive, but I'm bringing 190, or actually you'd have to throw in another 5, so $15 to bring it to 300 and 300, okay? So the 300 pays 600, okay? Now I'm gonna pay it like this, just so you can see what we'll do with it, because we will have to throw in 15, but we throw in 25, okay? The reason why we throw in 25 is because we go to 400. Now, remember, look at all this money we're bringing back to our rack, okay? So what we're doing on these is, because there's only 6 ways to make the 4 and 10, 3 ways here, 3 ways here. That's why we're doing it by hundreds once we get up to this level, and instead of just trying to get to table max of 500. If we hit one more time, yes, both of them will be at 400 or 500 table max, and we'll bring some back. So let's see, what would it be? It would be $800, just like that. We'd have to throw in, what's that? We'd have to throw in, we'd throw in 50 bucks actually. I think, right, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, $50, because we're making them both look like 500, and now they pay $1,000. But we are bringing 600 back to our rack by that time. So if we lose this, we don't care. We brought over 1,000 back already. You know what I'm saying? So with all that being said, now we're at the table max, and this does pay $25, pays $1,000. So we're not really worried about this at this time. We're hoping to hit it at this time. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you could watch it back, but that's the pressing patterns that I do when I'm playing Craps on a Cruise to earn a free cruise. Don't forget to subscribe and watch this video if you'd like to see more, and I hope to see you cruising and pressing on a craps table soon. See ya.